The first time I saw Hamilton, I was completely blown away. I wanted to read everything I could read about it, and I had this idea to get a group of professors from Stanford together to teach a class on Hamilton about all of its different aspects, about the casting, about the role of women in the musical, about Alexander Hamilton, about who he was from a more historical standpoint.
When Allison originally approached me about the course, I said, great. So that we could have a class that looked at all the dynamics of Hamilton and all that it was trying to do from different academic angles. One of the great things about Hamilton is that it's been an entree into the arts, into the humanities, that Lin-Manuel took this 700-page book and made it into a play is amazing and speaks to his genius. And the students could get a taste of that, and hopefully it whet their appetites for more.
It captures so much as just a piece of history, sort of making an argument about history, offering content about history.
It's the 10 dual commandments.
It can seem very strange and foreign to us that Alexander Hamilton and Erin Burr have this duel, but if you actually look seriously at early Republican politics, duels were very normal. They were something people did all the time, and they did so for reasons I tried to unpack for the students, that it was precisely because this was such a sort of fiercely democratic time when people had to, whether they wanted to or not, appeal to the public, try to win over public opinion. But they're also trying to play by these older rules of gentlemanly honor, that you end up getting this explosive context where if you insult somebody, they have to put their life on the line to show that they're actually honorable, which is a direct byproduct of the revolution. And that is a tension that we still live with now, right? This idea of everybody's equal, but is there such a thing as expertise, or some people have a better temperament to rule? We see that played out every presidential election in a certain way.
Watching him grabbing and power and kissing, and Washington isn't gonna listen to disciplined dissidents. This is the difference. This kid is out.
Miranda's famous for verbal dexterity, the way in which words or phrases are kind of recycled, and you get all kinds of assonance and kind of wordplay all the time, which is part of hip hop, but he does it in a way that clearly is kind of reaching back to a golden age Broadway lyricism.
It's a musical that fundamentally is not a hip-hop musical, and it's not a traditional musical. It's a hybrid musical. I mean, it's a musical that draws on a lot of different traditions. It connects with the history of the rock musical and the jazz musical earlier on, and the idea that culture comes from many different places and it presents a complex weave of things, and that it can be approached from many different perspectives. That kind of mixture of elements is something really worth paying attention to, I think.
One of the things that fascinates me is the casting. You have these actors of color playing the great men in American history, of Thomas Jefferson and also Hamilton. And what does that do to thinking about the play? There's a magic that happens in performance when you see these actors inhabiting these roles. I remember sitting at the play and sitting next to a white older man who said, "This is our history," at the intermission, and looked at me. And that sense that this was a history that reached across racial boundaries is significant. And the racial casting brings that into the forefront in a way that raises interesting questions about what it means to be an American citizen.
One thing I notice in the score that's interesting is the fair amount of music that's not hip-hop. Often it involves like solo violin or keyboard, and it actually alludes to kind of the sound of domestic music in the 18th century when the thing is taking place. One example is the son of Hamilton, Philip, is being given piano lessons by his mother, and this works into the score very cleverly in terms of this counting motif. He's counting the scales as he plays. So you get this sound. What was music like inside the house of Hamilton when his son was learning music? You know, you get all kinds of historical and cultural layers of music, a real kind of multi-textural dimension to the experience.
Well, if it isn't Erin Burr.
During the preceding event in the musical that leads to the duel, Hamilton is commenting with sort of confusion and frustration that Burr is going door to door, as he says, to campaign. He says, going door to door, that's new. What this represents is that Burr was really sort of the first politico in American history who had no shame about campaigning or electioneering. This was anathema to honor culture. People who had honor didn't ask for power, didn't ask for anyone's vote. And this song actually has all this hidden meaning in it about Hamilton growing so angry at Burr. It's a disagreement about how honorable men are supposed to behave. And that's something that I think is very easily missed.
These female characters in Hamilton's life reveal both options and limits for women at the time in terms of gender, in terms of class, and in terms of race. Family relations were central, not only for the women, but for the men. Remember, it's marrying into the landed Schuyler family that's key to Alexander Hamilton's rise.
With women on the sidelines, Hamilton misses one of the most important stories of the American Revolution, the failure of the Revolution to challenge coverture. Coverture essentially made marriage a transfer of ownership from father to husband.
A profoundly human dimension comes through what Lin-Manuel Miranda does with the musical. It's both a story of great rise, but also sort of rapid fall. It gives you a lot to work with. It's not just a simple morality tale of good versus bad, but it's the story of the nation in some ways brought down to human scale. The songs become a vessel for people. Being able to engage with this is something more than facts and books.
Alexander Hamilton takes Eliza by her hand and leads her to the edge of the stage. In the final moment of the musical, she gasps. And we might imagine that as Eliza takes her last breath, she sees the audience and knows that she has put herself back in the narrative. She has powerfully told her own story.
Hamilton speaks to this moment in time. It speaks to questions about race and politics. It speaks to a question about how do you honor your history. It speaks to questions of gender dynamics and what's happening now in our political environment. Students can find a connection to their own lives and experience within this life of Hamilton so many years ago.